This is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Chof Beis. We're holding on the bottom of Chof Aleph on Beis. We're within the topic of Kiyum Shtaros, certifying a document, a very necessary and crucial process, so that you get your hempik, you get your stamp of certification, you get your approval, and now your document is worth gold. Now you could collect with it. And yesterday we started discussing the exact way, actually not just yesterday, the past few days we've been talking about how to certify this document, and now we continue. We're on the first wide line in the bottom of Chof Aleph on Beis. Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Says Rav Abba, then Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Three people sit down to Mekayim to certify a document. V'kar ir al echad mehem. And you know what happens? Someone says, 1 second, one of us is not good. Meaning, there's three dayanim sitting to certify a document. And someone says, makes an error. Someone makes a claim, a question, a challenge. Says one of these dayanim is not good to certify a document. What is the halacha? Says the Gemara. Actually, chasmu, before they signed, then me'idin alav. What they do, they testify v'chaisim. They testify in front of another person, another bezdin, and then v'chaisim, and then he is allowed to sign. Again, I did not explain this clearly. Let me explain it one more time. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are a bezdin. They're sitting in their belti mekayim mishtar, and someone walks into bezdin and says, "Object, Reuven, you are not a kosher person. You can't be a judge." What do we do now? We don't have our bezdin. So you know what we do right now? What we go and we do is Levi and Shimon go to another bezdin, and they give eidos that Reuven is kosher. Bezdin accepts it. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, boom, could certify the document. But Misha Chasmu, if they already signed, and then someone says that Reuven, you were not kosher, then Shimon and Levi cannot testify anymore about the kashrus of Reuven. Why? Says the last Rashi, such a crucial rule, because you're negeya ba'edos. You know why? You have a negeya. You're blinded. Why are you blinded? Because you don't look good if you signed with Apostle Aid. So if Shimon and Levi already signed the document, and now they're going to come in and say, we could prove that Reuven's kosher. You're only saying that because you already signed with Reuven. And you don't want to look like a person that signs with someone who's not kosher, so you do not have any believability right now. But says the Gemara, beautiful, but let's go a bit deeper into this topic. Ir demai. What is the error? What is the challenge? What did when someone came into the Bezdin and yelled object and said, Reuven, you're not kosher? In what way is Reuven not kosher? Explains the Gemara. If you're going to tell me that someone comes in and says, Reuven is a ganof, Reuven is a thief, as we turn over to today's Daf of Chav Beis and Aleph, trei ninu. So what does it help? What does it help when they go and they say that Reuven is not a ganif? Now it's 2 versus 2. Look at top Rashi. Ki Amri, when they say loy gazal, he did not swear, not steal. Havlei trei utrei. V'loy miskasher b'achi. Why? Because we're going to learn later on in ir pachas mishnayim. It wasn't one person running into Bezdin and yelling object. It was 2 people. So again, Reuven, Shimon, Levi are sitting on a Bezdin. 2 people walk in. We'll call them Jack and Joe. Walk in and say, Reuven, you're a gazlan. Said the Braisa. So Shimon and Levi go to another Bezdin and they testify that what Reuven is not a gazlan. 1 second. Shkayach, what does it help? Jack and Joe says he is a gazlan. Shimon and Levi say he's not a gazlan. Classical trey or trey, it blows up. It doesn't help us at all. So that can't be the case. And if Jack and Joe came in and said, Reuven has a problem with his lineage, he's not kosher, then we ask the question the other way. Then even if they all signed, what's the problem with Shimon and Levi giving testimony about Reuven? All they're doing is Gili Milsa Ba'al Mohu. All they're doing is clarifying something. They're not actually bringing something new to the court. All they're doing is they're showing he was always a kosher. Let's see one more Rashi. I know it's getting late. Rashi in the last wide line on the top of the Amid says, Gili Milsa Ba'alma, Mishachasmu Amayni Midinalav. So once they signed, why can they not testify? Where's their negio? Where are they blinded? You just have to clarify it. It's something that's going to be clarified. That they check walk into the person and they find out, let's pull out the family tree and we see, it's not an eidos. There's two different things. When I testify, Reuven is yes a Gazlan and not a Gazlan. I am giving testimony about the veracity, the validity, the makeup of the person. However, when I say Reuven is kosher, is not kosher, he's a slave, he's not a slave, he's a mamzer, he's not a mamzer, I'm not saying anything about him. I'm revealing whether he's kosher. We're going back in the family tree and we're just trying to do some technical detective work. So that's not something that's a real eidos. It's not up to the Haggadah. It's not due with the words of a witness. And therefore, why would we not be able to do it even after we signed? So what is the case of the Braisa? Says the Gemara, the Gazlanusa. Really, the case is that they gave eidos about that he was a Gazlan. And you asked, Hani Yadin and Bey, David Shuva, and you asked, wait, so it's 2 and 2. Jack and Joe say Reuven is a Gazlan, Shimon and Levi say he's not. Says the Gemara, no, you know what Shimon and Levi said? Shimon and Levi did not just say Reuven's not a Gazlan. They said he returned the item he stole. That's why they're believed. Trey, what is 2 versus 2? When there's an argument, there's a clash. There's no clash here. Shimon and Levi are agreeing to Jack and Joe. Jack and Joe said he stole. Shimon and Levi said, you're right. But guess what? He returned it already. So therefore, he's kosher. Absolutely beautiful, says the Gemara. Rav Zera, 4 lines to the top. Ha milsa, may Rav Abba Shmili. I heard this from Rav Abba. Vilav Rav Abba diminakoi, and if not for him, shachasei shechachta, I would have forgotten it. If 3 people three people sit to certify a document, and then one of them is nifter before they actually signed, what do they write? They have to write, they have to write that we were 3 people, and one is no longer alive, even though all 3 of them knew it was kosher, but since they didn't get a chance to sign, they have to write that this is only being signed by 2 people. What's the reason? So Rashi explains over here, because what happens when you sign? Again, what's the hempik? What's the certification? We certify the document, then we have signature of Reuven, signature of Shimon, signature of Levi. But here, what are you going to see? We certify signature of Reuven and Shimon. There's no Levi. So no one's going to believe it. Why? Because there's only 2, you need 3. So you write, Levi was here, he just was nifter, and then there's going to be Nemanis. Amar Nachra Yitzchak, another way of doing it, to be Kasabay. And if they write, Shtar Dinan Nafil Kadmana, and if they write this document came before us, Beidina, they write the word Beidina, the court, Sulay Tzarech, they don't have to write anything else, because everyone knows that means there were 3 people here. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? Maybe it was a Bezdin who had chutzpah, chedishmul, damar shmul, shmul, torah shnayim, mishadanu dineim din. If 2 people judge a case, their judgment is valid. Elishanikar bezdin chatzaf. They're called the bezdin chatzaf. They're called insolent. They're called chutzpah. They're not able to do that. Excuse me. So ask the Gemara. There's a concept of the word bezdin, quote unquote, for to 2 eidim. So how are you telling me that if it says we sat here in front of a bezdin, that's enough to prove that there were originally 3 people? Answers the Gemara. The Beidina de Ravna Ashi, because they wrote it's the Bezdin of Rav Ashi, which of course was a good Bezdin. Asked the Gemara, V'dom Rabbanon Dver Ashi, because Shmuel's Sfirle, maybe they held like Shmuel, the Shvilu, Techsev Bey, V'amar Lana Ravna Ashi, and Rav Ashi himself told us to do this, and of course Rav Ashi himself, we don't have to be worried that Rav Ashi would do something with only 2 Dayanim, so it must be there were 3 Dayanim. And now we continue Chaf Beis and Aleph, the Mishnah, in which we're going to get deeper into something we learned a few days ago, the rules of Pesha Osar, Hua Pesha Hitter. The mouth that opens up is the mouth that's believed. Says the Mishnah, Isha Shamar Isha Isa Yishi Grusha Ani. I was married, I'm now divorced. Now, man, she's believed. Why? We have a woman right now that's a single woman. She says, by the way, I was married. We had no way of knowing that. So she was a Pesha Asar. She made herself Asar. Then, Hua Pesha Hitter. She made herself Mutter. So she is believed. However, continues the Mishnah, if there are Eidim that she was married previously, if he marries Gushani, then ain't no menace, because she lost her Pesha Asar. Similar case. Amr Nishmesi Utayirni, a woman says I was captured, but the captors didn't do anything to me and I'm tar. Tarani, Nemenes should believe Shabbos Hitter. We had no way of knowing she was captured. V'mishedim shenishbas yemer Tarani in an immense. V'mishenisneis bo edim areze loy teitzi. And the Mishnah concludes, which we're gonna have to see what this means, that if after she gets married, edim come over and then they give their edus, then she areze loy teitzi. She does not have to get divorced. So before we go into the cases of the Mishnah, the Gemara begins with the source for this incredible rule of Pesha Asaru Pesha Hitter. And this is really concluding part of a conversation that we've had for a few weeks in the beginning of the Masechta, the not Shar Shenagach. There's a axe slaughtered in front of us or not. Are you creating the case or not? Shenemar says in the pasuk, as biti nasati liisha. To this man I gave my daughter as a wife. Leish, when he says I gave my daughter to a man, all of a sudden now le'asra. Now she's usher to the entire world because we don't know which man. Hazeh, when he says this man, heteira. Now we know it's believed. So here we see that if you're the one that created the Isser, you have the believability to create the heter. Asks the Gemara such a yesaitistic question. Lamali kras svarahi. Why do we need a pasuk? It's perfectly logical that what? Who asra, who sharila. That you started, you finished. You opened your mouth, you get to close your mouth. You got to say it's us, you got to say it's mutter. You said you're captured, you said you're dar. You said you were married, you said you're divorced. Why do we need a pasuk to something that is logical? Answers the Gemara, you know we need the pasuk for? About 10 lines from the wide lines of Chavei Zamarel. Now we're not talking about you yourself. How do you know a person has a believability about his daughter? So says the Gemara, why Hazeh lamali. Why did he have to say leish hazeh? I give my daughter to this man. You know why? Rav Yoina. The Tani Rav Yoina is speaking hazeh leish hazeh. Hazeh v'lo liyabim. That is what the pasuk come to teach us. That it's to this man, and the halachas, these halachas of mitzi shemra, to only apply to a regular husband and not in the rules of yibum. There's no halachas of mitzi shemra. Tanu Rabbana. Now we go deeper into the cases of our Mishnah. She says, I was married, and then she says, I'm single. Says the Gemara, she is believed. Says the Gemara, 1 second, how is she believed? She made herself a piece of Isser. It's not a Pesha Asir or Pesha Hitter. She's not saying I was married and divorced. Then she's explaining what happened. Here she's saying I'm married, but I'm single. So you made yourself a piece of Isser. You can't make yourself not that. Such a critical word. She gave an excuse. She explained why she said what she said. Then she is believed. And as we see more, we're going to get more of an understanding what this means. That even though she said she's an Isha's Ish, she ostensibly said she's usher to the whole world, she's believed afterwards to say I was never married. How you believe to do that? You made yourself a usher. The answer is she had a masla. She had a reason that is believable, as we'll see more right now. Says the Gemara, Tani Nami Achi, we have a right. There's 2 lines on the wide lines. If a woman says I was married, but says the Bryce of him, Nasna Masla, Lidva around the first wide line, then Nemenes. And there was a story with a woman, a beautiful, a prestigious woman, Shaisa Gedula B'noi. She was beautiful in beauty. The Kav Saleh B'nei Adam L'Kacha. Many people were trying to marry her. She said, leave me alone. I'm married. What do you want? I'm wearing a ring. Get out of here. I'm married. Liyamim, a few days later, Amda V'Kichas Ashmai. She invites everyone. I'm getting married. Amru Lo Chacham. The Chacham said to her, Ma'aros Lasiskin. What's going on over here? So Amru Ma'arom Lasiskin. Amra Lohem, so she responds, originally all these people who were asking me to get married, they weren't good guys. So you know what I said to them? Leave me alone. I'm married. Now there's a good shidduch. And the zu halacha helo ravacha. Sar Habiro of Nechachamim, they brought it to the halacha from the Chacham Be'usha, and they said, Im Nasna Masla Devareo Nemenis. If you have a good reason to explain what you said, then you are believed. So she had a good reason. These people didn't leave her alone. She said, get out of here. I'm a married woman. They left her alone. Then she got married. How can you do that? I have an amasla. I have a way of explaining what I did. You know why I did what I did? Because they weren't leaving me alone. They were asking me. Now I found a good shidduch. I'm getting married. Ask the Gemara, 2 lines to the bottom. Shmuel Meirav. Amra Tameani v'chazar Amra Tayrani. This is actually halacha lamaisa. No one should ever do such a thing. But if a husband comes, and we'll see more stories in the Gemara, but this is a classical case. Husband comes to his wife and she says, I'm Aser, I'm Anida, leave me alone. Tameani. Then the next day she says, by the way, I'm Mutter, Tahirani. Ma, what's halacha? Amra lei. Afbazu, even this case, im nasna amasla lidvareos. We turn over to Chabezim and Beis. She gave a reason for what she did. Na'menes, she is believed. Now the cases this could have happened, which are dreadful, is if there's a big shalom bayis problem, and the woman doesn't want to be with her husband. So when her husband comes over to her, she says, "Don't touch me, I'm Anida. Oh yeah, I had my period last night. Get out of here." So he's like, "Oh, okay," and he leaves her alone. And then maybe the fight calms down, Baruch Hashem, and they make up, and 2 days later, she comes to her husband, and her husband's like, what are you doing? You told me you're Aser. She says, oh no, I was joking. You're joking? No, we were just in a fight. So we're seeing in the Gemara, if she gives an amasla, as the Tab Rashi points out, mashal v'tam, she explains what she did, this go back in Amud Aleph, but it's the same thing, then she has a believability. Continues the story in the top of Amud Beis. Tana minei arba and zidnin. Shmuel learned this from Rav 40 times. V'lochi lov et Shmuel over the Kenavshei, Ben Avshei, and still Shmuel himself didn't do a story like this. What is the story with Shmuel? Says the Gemara. Tana Rabbanan. Shnayim amrim meis, a different case. Ushnayim amrim loy meis. 2 people said that a man died, meaning his wife could get remarried, and 2 people said he did not die. Shnayim amrim niskarsha. Shnayim amrim loy niskarsha. Actually, excuse me, before we continue, let's get rid of that. Let's go to Rashi for one moment. Rashi, in the beginning of the last wide line, Rashi explains what happened with Shmuel. Pamachas amrloi ishtai. Cain, his wife one time said this to him, meaning his wife said to him one time, I am Tameh. And then, and then later on she explained what happened. She says, I was sick, I had the flu, I just wasn't feeling good. Upirish Shemena ad shetavla, and Shmuel himself did not believe his excuse. But of course, the takeaway point just on the side of halacha lemaisa is no one should ever say, I'm Tameh. It's not something to play with. You never play with halacha. It's something no one should say. And when an amasla is believed, etc., is a large sugya. Now we go into a new case. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan. Shnayim amrim meis, Shnayim amrim loy meis. We're Chabezim and Beis, 4 lines to the top. 2 people say this woman's husband died. 2 people say he didn't die. Or Shnayim amrim niskarsha, Shnayim amrim loy niskarsha. Or we have a fight if they got divorced. Harizaloi tinaseh, she's not allowed to get married. Then this says, and if she went and she actually got married, loy teitze, she does not have to leave. Which is interesting. You would think if she can't get married and then she got married, she has to get divorced. Says the Gemara, don't get married, but if you get married, you do not have to get divorced. Of course, the Gemara will explain all this. But first, the Brisa continues. Rav Nachman Rav Yesi Omer Teitze, she has to get divorced. Amr Rav Nachman Rav Yesi. Now he explains. A Masai, when is this? When do I say that she has to get divorced? A Masai ni Omer Teitze. Bisman Shavo Eidim va'achar kach niseis. Eidim came, and there was a fight whether she was divorced. And then she's not supposed to get married, and she goes anyways. Then she has to get divorced. Avol niseis. She first got married, and then v'achar ba'edim loy teitze. Then she does not have to get divorced. Says the Gemara, let's try to understand this. What does this mean, loy teitze? How could she ever not get divorced in these cases? Mechti, treyu treininu, it's a regular fight. Haba leo b'asham talui. It's a regular fight, 2 witnesses versus 2 witnesses. What happens there? It blows up, meaning it's a suffix. We don't know what to do. So this woman is suffix married. If another man marries her, another man sleeps with her, it's to bring it asham talui. It's a suffix kares. How in the world can we let them stay married? Explains the Gemara, she married one of the witnesses. Then she's allowed to stay married. But the Gemara continues, and the Gemara doesn't understand this yet. The Gemara says, wait, he gufa b'asham tali. Meaning, if she married one of the witnesses, he himself said she is divorced. So for him, she's divorced. And therefore, he's allowed to be with her. There's no suffix in his mind. But says Mara, wait, what about her? She herself has to bring an Asham Tali because she herself had a psak of 2 verses 2 of a Safek. Explains the Gemara by Meres, Barili. She says Bari. So we have a very unique thing going on over here. We have a fight between Eidim. 2 Eidim say she's divorced, 2 Eidim say she's not divorced. She says, I know I got divorced, and therefore she goes and marries one of the Eidim that says she was divorced. So the Eid that says she was divorced, he says, I know about her, that she's divorced. She says, I know about it myself. That's the case that the Gemara says you're allowed to stay married. Very interesting. That was all part A of the Braisa. Omer Rav Yochanan comes like Rav Yochanan, he says a bit different. Do not get married, which was the same thing. We'll highlight 5 lines from the top as the first opinion. And if she gets married, like Teitze. So far, the exact same thing as the first opinion of the Braisa. Now, next case. Oh, now we're seeing something different, right? Because what did the Tanakama say? Go back 3 lines from the top. Tanakama put the 2 cases together. The case of Mace and the case of Niskarsha, the Tanakama put together. Rav Yochanan is splitting them up. When it came to Mace, that the Eidim saying about the husband died, then he said, don't get married, and if you do, you don't have to get divorced. But now, when there's a fight between divorce, still there is a loitinase. But in this case, says the Gemara, I don't understand. Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. What's going on, Rav Yochanan? Why are you differentiating between whether there's the 2 verses 2 on death or divorce? It should be the same thing. So we have 3 different ways of explaining Rav Yochanan. Number 1, Abaye Omer Abaye, Tirgama Be'id Echad. Rav Yochanan was referring to when there was one singular witness that the husband died, or there was one witness that said they got divorced. And then there was one witness that contradicted him. So now let's play out the case. One guy says the husband died. That person, the halacha is a special kula with regard to aguna. We say that when someone says, "Oh man died," his wife is mutter. They believe him like 2 witnesses. Whenever there's unique leniency, there are special cases in which the Torah says we believe in Eid Echad. So whenever the Torah says that, it says Ula, they have the status of 2 Eidim. So when one guy comes in and says this woman's husband died, boom, Paskins Bezdin, it says if there are 2 Eidim standing here saying she died. And then one Eid comes in, now one person comes in and says, no, he didn't die. So what's halacha? Beautiful. The second guy that comes in, he's a singular person. And what's he fighting? One person. No, he's not. He's fighting theoretically, or not theoretically, he's fighting halachically 2 people. How they're halachically 2 people? Because this one guy that said the husband died, la halacha is believed. And the rule is, says Ula, when one person is believed as a status of 2. So what's going on over here? Then this person says they didn't die. This is one fighting 2. That's why they're believed. That's why in the case of Mace, the first case that Rav Yochanan brought down, he said, don't get married. But if you did, then you do not have to get divorced. Ask the Gemara, 1 second, it's so beautiful. So why are they not allowed to get married in the first case? Seemingly it's great. One person is believed, the status of 2. One person is arguing, so why shouldn't they allow to get married? Explains the Gemara, you know why? Misham de Ravasi, Dam Ravasi. Explains Ravasi, almost a Musar Shmuz. Haser Mimcha. Remove from you akshus poi velazos sefasayim, the distortion of your mouth and the perversity of your lips. Harchek mimcha, you should distance, and therefore we do not allow them lechatchila to get married. But if they did, they do not have to get divorced. That's the case of Mace, according to Rav Yochanan. Abaye continues. Seifa, what was the seifa in the case of divorce? We're 6 lines of the wide lines. So when 2 people are fighting whether this couple got divorced, what are they admitting on? They're agreeing on one detail, that they were previously married. So Tervayu says Ishka Misadi. They're both agreeing that they were previously married. Now one person saying they were the divorce. Now that's one person. And therefore, in the case of divorce, you can't get married. And if you do, you have to get divorced. Because both singular Eidim agreed there was a marriage. They agreed there's an Eishes Ish. One says there's a divorce. That person has no believability at all. Boom, you have to get divorced. The beautiful teretz of Abaye explaining the difference in the Reisha and Seifa of Rav Yochanan. Comes along Rava, teretz number 2. Rava Amrleilim Treyu training really in all these cases. It's 2 verses 2. So what's the difference between divorce and death? Rav Yochanan looked at the previous brisa we quoted at the top of the Amud of Rav Menachem Rav Yosi, and he said, I agree with him with regard to gerushin and not with misa. Why? My time. What's the reason? Misa in yechola machshasai, gerushin yechola machshasai. Death is not able to be, the woman cannot contradict. Meaning, if later on the husband shows up, what's the woman going to say? Oh, you're dead? He's standing here, shagayach. So therefore, he says, in the case of death, we have to be very careful. But in the case of divorce, even if the husband shows up and says, I never divorced her, she can say, yes, you did. Here's my cat. She could have Adim. She could somehow prove it. So that's the reason, says Rava, that Rav Yochanan is more lenient by gerushin, that if she got married, she does not have to get divorced. Ask the Gemara, is she so chutzpahdik that she's going to lie that she got divorced? If a woman says I was divorced, she's believed. Why? A woman would never have the audacity to say such a thing in front of her husband unless she's believed. Answers the Gemara, honey, me that's only echad like Eidim to come Messiah law. Echad Eidim to come Messiah law, me'iza. If she has Eidim, then she would be able to lie. The Gemara was bothered in the Kasha. You said, oh, if the husband comes, she'll fight with him. But a woman never fights. A woman doesn't have that chutzpah. Says Gemara, no, but if she has Eidim, then she'll certainly have the chutzpah. And the final teretz Rav Yochanan, we'll call it a day, Rav Asi Amar, go d'amri Eidim achshav meis. Says Rav Asi, you know what Rav Yochanan was referring to? A case where the Eidim said, right now, today he died. Or, Achshav Girsha, today they got divorced. Misa Leka Lebrura. When it comes to the case of death, there's no way to prove whether a person died or not, and therefore, even if they get remarried, they have to get divorced. But Gerishin, Ika Lebrura, but Gerishin, there is a way to prove it. Amrina Lux, we say to her, Emisa Dachiave, Achslan Gitach, today, show us your get. And that is the reason why she can't say she lost the get, it was today. And therefore, if she doesn't have the get, that shows that she was in truth not divorced. And that's why if she got remarried, she would have to get divorced again from the second husband. But in the case of death, since there's no way to prove it, I don't know if I said this right before, let me repeat it now. In the case of death, since there's no way to prove it, if she got remarried, she could stay married. 3 different ways, Abai, Rav, and Rav Asi, 3 different ways of proving the chilik in Rav Yechanan's price, that the difference between Mesa and Gerushin, not like the original brisa on the top of the Amud, like Rav Menachem Rav Yosi that put Gerushin and Mesa in one boat. We'll pick up from the bottom of the Amud in the next year. Amir Tzashem.